The World Series of Poker main event is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This year, 9 poker players emerge from a field of 6,683. But for one member of this elite group, the opportunity is now twice in a lifetime.
Going back-to-back gives me a chance to finish what I started last year.
After a career full of ups and downs, Mark Newhouse finds himself in rarefied air. Back-to-back final tables with a legitimate shot at $10 million.
It's a big number. It can buy a lot of freedom. I don't know what I'll do with it yet, but I'll figure out when I have that problem.
Newhouse is not alone on this joyride. The Netherlands' Jorrit van Hoop is the chip leader.
This is a potentially once-in-a-lifetime experience, of course, but I really try to focus on playing poker and not on the end result.
9 players, 1 bracelet, $10 million for first. It's the 2014 World Series of Poker main event. Final destination, top of the poker world. Welcome to the 2014 World Series of Poker main event final table telecast presented by Gentleman Jack. Tonight, the Rio All-Suite Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada is the only place in the world where someone will turn $10,000 into $10 million. The Penn and Teller Theater is jammed as we bring you this historic final table live. A lot to cover, but the story of the night starts with Mark Newhouse. Newhouse, not yet 30 years old, about to compete in his second main event final table in 2 years. He finished 9th in 2013 and seemed very focused on turning his third-place starting stack into $10 million. Standing in his way are 8 tough challengers, none with a bigger stack than Dutchman Jorrit van Hoop, only the second player from the Netherlands to ever make a main event final table. He's a talented pro. He's going to make things very difficult on Newhouse and the others. And there is the 2014 main event bracelet with a retail value of over $500,000. Of course, for the eventual champion, it is priceless. Since 1972, the buy-in of $10,000 for the World Series of Poker main event has not changed, but the prize money for first place has grown tremendously. In 1972, Amarillo Slim won $80,000. In 2003, Chris Moneymaker took home $2.5 million. But this year, that figure is a massive $10 million. Hi, everybody. Lon McCarron, along with my longtime broadcast partner, Norman Chad, and one of Tournament Poker's all-time leading money winners, 3-time bracelet winner, Antonio Esfandiari. Antonio, what stands out for you about this November Niner lineup?
Well, Lon, it's pretty hard for me to believe that if I was at this final table, I would be the oldest player here tonight. How can I be over the hill already? But what really stands out for me is Mark Newhouse. Back-to-back final tables in such massive fields. I really do believe that his experience will be a huge difference maker tonight.
Indeed. Norman, what more can be said about Newhouse and this incredible accomplishment? Will anyone make back-to-back main event final tables ever again?
Well, anything's possible, especially in poker. So sure, if we play the main event 1,000 years, an alien from Pluto might win, or the first place prize eventually could be $50 billion, or I even could make the final table. Okay, that's a stretch. But the point remains. Anything can happen. So making back-to-back November 9s is simply unthinkable, inconceivable, unbelievable, and implausible. But Mark Newhouse just did it?
Yeah.
Well, frankly, I find that unthinkable, inconceivable, unbelievable, and implausible. At least that's what I think.
Let's take a look at our chip counts as we get this final table underway. Bruno Politano, the short stack, but he still has 30 big blinds. The man to beat from the Netherlands is Jorrit van Hoop. One man in that group is looking to make some history at this year's main event final table, and he is Mark Newhouse. He made the final table last year, and right now, just before we get the cards in the air, Kara Scott is standing by with the man who's looking to make it all his own.
The world title is the same. This table looks familiar. So what is it about Mark Newhouse, the poker player, that's changed since last year?
Well, in the last 4 months, I haven't been playing much poker. So Mark Newhouse, the poker player, I'll have to find out today. I don't even remember.
It should be an interesting one out there. Now, you said that it's kind of like a redemption shot, coming back and getting to do this again. Can you expand on what it means to be here?
Finished 9th last year, and who would have knew I had another shot at it? So hopefully this one's going to work out.
Thank you so much. That's Mark Newhouse.
It was 118 days ago that these November Niners were forged in the cauldron of battle. That this is the World Series of Poker main event. To get us restarted, let's go down to our tournament director, Jack Effel.
We are moments away from getting cards in the air. Blinds are 200,000, 400,000 with a 50,000 chip ante. Mark Newhouse will have the button. There is 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 24 seconds left in level 35. For tonight's Shuffle Up and Deal, please welcome the 2013 main event champion, Ryan the Beast Reese.
So guys, the day is finally here. Enjoy this experience. It's one hell of a ride. I'd like to wish you all the best of luck. Dealer, shuffle up and deal.
I tell you, Antonio, these players are ready.
I mean, 4 months of waiting, the main event final table, a lot of money at stake. 10 million can change a lot of lives.
Norman, it has been a fun ride through these 4 months to do these shows and present them to America. And now I can imagine these guys' minds have to be going crazy with that much money on the table.
Yeah, they had to wait 118, 119 days for it. And we've got some tremendous stories out there, Lon. Newhouse, of course, with back-to-back November 9s. Politano, the first Brazilian ever to make it to the main event final table. And, of course, the only true amateur here, Billy Pappas, the foosball champion.
And they all come with pretty decent stacks. And without altar play, the short stack 30 big blinds, Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to take a while, just because the smallest stack usually has less than 30 big. So nobody's really in a rush to get all their chips in the pot. And so it's going to take a while for sure.
And you saw the graphic a moment ago. Last year's final table took 261 hands. So if you're tuned in, get comfortable. You are in for a nice, long, exciting ride. There is our chip leader, Jort von Hof. And Mark Newhouse looking to at least get by the first hour of play, which he couldn't do last year.
Raise 650,000.
Newhouse loves to raise. The blinds at 200 and 400,000 with a 50K ante.
So he loves to raise, but obviously when he's on the button, everybody folds to him. You know, his range is anywhere. I mean, look,
you can see that.
Deuce. So I actually think that's okay, just because you want to set the precedent, you want to set the tone that you're in there to play. So believe it or not, I kind of like the raise.
Yeah, Will Tonking flops aces up after calling. 27-year-old Tonking, cash game player.
Check.
Against the cash game player from L.A.
So this flop actually hit both players. I mean, Tonking flopped 2-pair, which is a monster heads up. And Newhouse has the nut flush draw in position. So if a heart peels off, Tonking is in a little bit of a trouble.
Newhouse betting that draw, $1 million. Just a call from Will.
So to think about that call, it's pretty interesting to call with 2-pair out of position there. And, you know, there's a lot of cards that can come on the turn that are pretty dangerous. But Tonking knows that Newhouse could have any 2 cards on the button. And so he's, you know, trying to let him continue barreling.
No heart, but another king falls on the river.
I mean, this is a clear check. Even if, you know, given that I can see Newhouse, it's a check because you want to let him bluff. But even if I'm in Tonking shoes and I can't see Newhouse's cards, my hand is now 2-pair with a 9 kicker.
Check.
So
Check, check.
I don't want to fire into this. I just want to check call.
And there is Tonking taking the first hand of the evening at this final table as he takes that pot of 4.2 million. Here now is the November Niner class of 2014. It's a good group.
Seat 1, Billy Pappas, Lowell, Mass.
Yep.
Seat 2, Felix Stevenson, Oslo, Norway.
Seat 3, Jort van Hof, Eindhoven, the Netherlands.
Seat 4, Mark Newhouse, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Seat 5, Andoni Larrave, Arrasate, Spain.
Seat 6, Will Tonking, Flemington, New Jersey.
Seat 7, Dan Sindelar from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Seat 8, Martin Jacobson, Stockholm, Sweden.
Seat 9, Bruno Politano, Ceará, Brazil. Politano is one man that a lot of people are rooting for just because of his personality and what they think he could do for poker, not only in South America, but all around the world.
We have a great poker boom in Brazil alone, 200 million. That's a lot of potential boom in Brazil alone if he can win this thing.
Not to mention he's got a lot of heart. I mean, he 6-bet Queen-8 offsuit on day 7 to win a massive pot. I mean, that takes a lot of courage.
Jacobson folded. Politano does bet with pocket tens, a raise to 850,000. Pappas folded. Stevenson gets out of the way. Chip leader says no thanks.
So given that it's early and we just started and there's such a difference in pay grades, you know, between 730,000 and first place of 10 million, as much as these are young, knowledgeable, aggressive players, I don't think we're going to see too much getting out of line. I think that these players are very, you know, conscious of the pay grade jump.
And of course, the 9th place finisher, the first one to go off of this final table tonight, does not earn one more red cent. Everyone has been paid 9th place money, but you know, they want to hang around. Mark Newhouse certainly knows the pain of being knocked out without earning any more money. And you see the chip stack of Bruno Politano right now, 4 chips in play right now. The green worth 25,000. There's a 100,000 chip along with a 250, and then there's the red chip worth 500,000. And so many chips in play, you have to have those types of denominations.
And you mentioned Newhouse trying to redeem himself from that 9th place, no more money finish last year. Had to wait a year. Never thought he'd get another chance. He gets it the next year. And he called last year's 9th place finish just devastating and disappointing to him. Let's see how he ends up this year, starting 3rd in chips.
And we do hope you're enjoying our updated coverage, a 30-minute delay, but cards up. And so you do notice when a player does enter the pot, you'll be able to see the whole cards if they have shown them to the camera or our RFID reader. And so a whole new level of viewing experience for you at home as you see talking with a raise. And he's a guy that usually does not get out of line, but on the button folded at him, he raises to 800,000 with 6-5 off.
Yeah, we definitely saw him playing more solid on day 6 and day 7 leading up to this final table. But again, he's on the button, everybody folded. You know, it's pretty standard open.
And Sindelar,
hello.
What a flop there. Sindelar flops the joint, a jack high straight.
I wouldn't be surprised if he leads out. Sindelar is a pretty calculated player.
Talking open-ended, but of course his straight's no good. Unless he hits the bottom half.
Yeah, that's not really the kind of straight you want to be drawing.
But that's not going to help him either, yeah. And Sindelar will take it talking with a nice fold. Sindelar, one of the number of cash game specialists here at this final table, and you think they're the ones who may have more insight to a lot of aspects of the game than a strict tournament player?
I think that cash game players are more used to playing with bigger stacks, and so they play a lot more, you know, pot control. They play a little bit more careful. I like it when they have a lot of big blinds when they're cash game players, because I think that they just have a certain kind of strategy that they're used to in a cash game that plays well in a tournament. But when it's short stack, you know, if you have 20 big blinds, I don't really like it because they tend to fold more often than they should.
Billy Pappas, the foosball multi-time world champion. He'll get out of the way. He has been a joy to get to know more about over the months.
He's lovable. You kind of just want to root for him. He's no Norman Chad, but, you know, he's up there.
Herman is unique.
I'm wearing a body bag today, so you can just take me out of here later after you pummel me for 12 hours.
800,000.
Another raise to 800,000, talking with ace 10 off. In late position, and this is Martin Jacobson, the most accomplished tournament player at this final table. He was a late chip leader in the main event. He was the only one who actually lost chips from day 6 to day 7, so he comes in a little shorter than he really wanted. He started this with just under 15 million, but had 22 million the day before, and so that was a devastating hit to a guy who really could dominate this table if he gets a big stack.
2.2. Raise, 2.2 million.
He's maybe going to start right now with a 3-bet to 2.2 million with Queen Jack offsuit.
So I like this play just because, you know, if you're going to play Queen Jack, you might as well take the aggression and hope that your opponent was opening light. Now, given that we can see Tonking has Ace 10, you know, Ace 10 is a good open. It's a great hand, but it's pretty hard to call a re-raise with it, especially when you're one of the less, you know, stacked. When you have one of the lesser stacks. So, given the way we've seen Tonking play, I think it's more likely that he's probably going to fold here. Also, Jacobson doesn't really get out of line too much from what we've seen. He plays pretty good, pretty selective, and so I think he'll end up tossing it.
Jacobson spent a lot of time in the break studying the players and honing his game, and he picked his spot very nicely there. So Tonking's hand, a good raising hand, but again, tough to follow up.
I mean, you know, you have Ace 10. A lot of times you might miss the flop, and then you might have the best hand. You don't know what to do. It's tough. It's kind of a tough spot.
So the London-based Swede picks up a pot. Mark Newhouse sporting the red shades tonight. That's how he upped his wardrobe this round, Norman.
You should have thought about it for about 2 more minutes.
He doesn't look too thrilled to be there.
Have you ever seen Mark Newhouse look thrilled to be anywhere?
Especially, I guess that's true.
Raise, $1 million.
Tell you what, I'd be pretty excited.
We've got a raise to $1 million. 2.5 times the big blind from the chip leader, Von Hof, with Ace-8 offsuit. So flexing his muscle and his hand just as susceptible as Tonking's Ace-10 was.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about Ace-8 is actually it's a lot easier to get away from. Ace-10, a lot of times you're actually in the lead, but if you get re-raised and you're holding Ace-8, it's actually a pretty easy fold.
Politano on the button.
Probably played as snug as anybody here in the first few days. Opened up later in the main event in the final days, but he's pretty tight.
He does fold the first Brazilian at a main event final table. Billy Pappas, fresh off a win in foosball in Germany, I believe it was, during the break. He gives it up. And Pappas folded Ace-9. And so Von Hof, the Dutch chip leader, getting a little stronger there. And he told me he wasn't going to have to play role of chip leader. He was going to kind of see how the table plays out and adjust to it. He has plenty of time to adjust.
That lasted about 4 hands.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you know, he would never make that play if he wasn't chip leader. But when you're chip leader, you kind of want to set the tone that, yeah, you know, I'm not here to fold. And he's got the chips. If he loses a pot here and there, it really isn't that big of a deal. Ace-8 in early position. It's a little aggressive, but hey, he's there and I'm here.
Well, we're glad you're here. I know you'd rather have a shot at 10 million, even though you would be the old guy out there.
Ouch.
Raise, 800,000.
The youngest player at the table, Andoni Larabe, with a raise with 10-9 of diamonds to 800,000. It's a minimum raise with the big blind at 400,000.
Call.
And Sindelar calls with a pocket pair. It will be fun to see how Politano reacts to everything going on there. And as a tight player, we saw him coming in. If he's going to adjust, if he's going to play to the crowd, he loves to feed off that crowd. You never know. We've seen people, you know, play out of their mind here in both good and bad ways when they get under the lights, Norman.
Yeah, it takes a while to adjust to under the lights, particularly in the Penn and Teller Theater, even more than the regular TV table. It is just an atmosphere that is unprecedented for all these players except for Mark Newhouse.
Stevenson calls with a suited jack, so 3 players will see the flop. 1 club. There's an ace out there.
Check.
Pair of 9s for Larabe to take the lead. Stevenson checked it, as you can see. With all the cards up on our coverage this year at the 2014 World Series of Poker main event final table. It will conclude tomorrow on ESPN at 9 p.m. Eastern, but we have a lot of work to do before we can get there. So Larabe with the best hand.
That's 1.2 million.
$1,200,000.
Now, this is what we call the Hollywood. There's no version of Sindelar coming into this pot.
Stevenson gives it up. So Anthony Larabe, the Spanish poker pro, will take it. We are underway here at the Penn and Teller Theater. More final table action in just a moment. The 2014 World Series of Poker is presented by Gentleman Jack Tennessee Whiskey, the Order of Gentlemen. And in part by the WSOP social game on Facebook and mobile. Try our new high roller tables today. All of the November Niners gathered last night at Rio's Palazzo Suites to watch the last of our ESPN shows leading up to the final table. Must have been a very interesting experience to see their ins and outs be all on display for the guys who are trying to knock them off of tonight's final table. Quite a unique experience, Norman.
Yeah, and to be able to watch that final 27-9 together is incredible. And I think they actually asked for the telecast to be muted with good
No
reason.
Doubt. No doubt. And there is our chip leader, Jort van Holt. And he's got a couple of coaches. He's got a strategy coach. He's got a mental coach for poker as well.
I love that idea. I mean, just, no matter how well you have your, poker and your head together, it doesn't hurt to have a little extra help.
And some of the things to look for nine-handed, and it does change throughout the night, doesn't it, Antonio?
Yeah, absolutely. Nine-handed, you kind of start out, everybody starts off a little slow, and they want, they want to get the vibe of the table, just kind of feel everybody out. People are playing a little bit more snug, especially, given what's at stake here tonight.
Mark Newhouse looking to better his 9th place effort from last year. He raised to 850 with ace-10 and gets a call with aces from Larabe.
Aces familiar for Larabe. They helped propel him here to November 9 when he had aces against Luis Velador's ace-king on the main event final table bubble.
Now, ace-10 offsuit in the one hole in a 9-handed game, it's a little bit on the loosey-goosey side because you have 8 other people that can wake up with a better hand than yours. And if anybody wakes up with ace-king, ace, or how about 2 aces, any one of those hands, you're in a little bit of a trouble. You're in a lot of trouble, actually. So, I'm not saying I would fold it. I'm just saying there's something to be, spoken about.
But it plays the Newhouse's style that we have seen in terms of just opening early position, late position, just putting pressure on.
Right. Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Larabe here is in a very good spot.
Yeah, but he's not going to flop a set.
No, he's definitely not flopping
All
a
the
set.
aces are spoken for.
Check. Check.
Check, check to the pocket aces now. Larabe wants to get maximum pain here if possible. And they were going to check to him anyway.
Right. He also doesn't love the flop. I mean, it's a pretty good flop. He's got the ace of hearts. He has backdoor flush draw.
That's 1.6 million.
He most definitely probably thinks he has the best hand, but he doesn't really want to get check raised here. I actually love that Von Hoff played it the way he did. He's out of position against 2 players behind him. There was a raise in early position and a call behind him. A lot of players here would re-raise with the ace-queen and get themselves in a serious pickle. And I think he played it great.
So the 2 other aces fold, and Larabe will take another pot. And this is a kid who we enjoyed meeting. Really good attitude, and seems to have the whole world right in front of him to do whatever he wants.
Why not? He's 22. He's got a great personality. Otherwise, he has the sunglasses I don't like, the hoodie I don't like, the striped plaid shirt I don't like. That's usually 3 strikes. But what a personality, and he just loves the game, and at 22, the world is his oyster.
And what a run he had. If you look at his stacks throughout the main event, on day 2 he was in 19th, on day 3 he was in 6th, on day 4 he was in 7th place, on day 5 in 5th place, and day 6 he was in 4th place, and day 7 he was in 4th place. He has been so consistent and so strong the whole way.
Yeah, top 10 stack a lot of those days. The only player here in the November 9 who was above average every day of the main event.
And what does that tell you about a player? I mean, is that someone you would put your money on in this type of event, this type of one-table finale?
Yeah, I mean, he's he's pretty focused. I think he's got a lot of determination, and he has some experience. It's anybody's game. I like his chances.
Larabe came in as the youngest, of course, in a 4th place stack with over 22.5 million. Right now he's at 26.6 million, and this is Bruno Politano, still the short stack with 12.2 million chips.
Bruno, the oldest player here. He's 1 month older than Van Hoof, who turns 32 on November 15th.
A couple of birthdays coming up, his and Sindelar's. Politano, the biggest short stack we have seen in the November Niner era, and the youngest oldest player at the final table. And with pocket jacks, the raise to 900,000 from Politano. Pappas folds to the Norwegian. Felix Stevenson folds over to Mark Newhouse. And he throws in a call with Queen 4 suited. And there is a 4 for Newhouse, and Newhouse hasn't flopped a set, but
you know, anytime you call with those hands and flop a pair, you kind of have to go with it for at least 1 or 2 streets. So, you know, what's most likely to happen is check, bet, call. You know, but if I'm sitting in Newhouse's shoes and my opponent has raised pre-flop and continuation bets on the flop, which is pretty standard, you know, there's a reasonable chance in my head that I think that my pair of 4s is pretty good. This is a fantastic flop for Politano.
All undercards to his jacks.
All undercards. He's, you know, there's no version of him going anywhere.
1.225, 1,225,000.
And after Newhouse's check, a bet from Politano.
And these two had plenty of heads-up play against each other on day 7. They went 2 or 3 times all the way to the river with big pots.
And Politano thinks Newhouse owes him for those adjustments. Another 10 on the turn.
So that might actually slow Politano down because his opponent check called the flop. If he has a 10, he's in big trouble. So in order to control the size of the pot, you know, I would highly consider checking back here. Even if I can't see Newhouse's cards, if I'm sitting in Politano's shoes, what I don't want to do is get check raised here.
Good call. Or good check. I said deuce of clubs. So we got a paired board, straight possibilities, and a couple of 10s out there.
So, you know, this is a really interesting card because every draw basically gets there. If Newhouse had 5-6, if he had a flush. But given that he has a pair, he's not going to try and get Politano off the hand.
Politano finally turns over the winning jacks. And Brazil has a chance to celebrate finally here in the Penn and Teller Theater.
So that was a really interesting hand because Newhouse had some showdown value, meaning that his hand could win in a showdown. He had 2 pair. If he didn't have any showdown value, he would have definitely bluffed the river.
Politano enjoying stacking his chips, maybe increasing his odds of winning. You see the final betting lines here. The chip leader always the favorite, but rarely the winner in the November 9 era. Politano, the short stack, came in as the long shot. And we were not allowed to place any wagers on you guys here.
Well, if I were a betting man, I would not bet at all because I never know what's going to happen. The chip leader usually does not win. Jonathan Duhamel in the November 9 era, the only chip leader, I believe, to take down the main event bracelet.
Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will crown a champion. One of these 9 players will be standing in a sea of confetti, holding the main event bracelet and having just won $10 million.
Who prepares the confetti?
Where do you think I've been all day?
Wow.
Worn out 18 pairs of scissors. Politano folds. Billy Pappas, nothing to play yet. And our chip leader wants to get involved on the button. Folded to him. Suited jack. And Larabe looks at him like, you raising me?
So, Antonio, I know how button raises are standard when you get short-handed, but how come they seem to be so standard even when you're at a 9-handed table?
I mean, even then it's pretty standard. You only have to get through 2 people. You have position on both of them. Chances are they don't have anything because most people, well, nobody ever has a hand. Except
you're right.
Once in a great while, right? So you have to try and pick up what's in there. There's dead money in the pot. There's all the antes, all the blinds. You just have to go for it on the button with anything that's even remotely reasonable.
Nice flop for Larabe, who flops a set of 7s. 1 spade only on the board.
Boy, it's a good feeling to flop a set when it really counts.
Got it.
That's 1.5 million.
Larabe running good so far at this final table. $1.5 million to the chip leader.
I think that leading out is a pretty strong play, and it doesn't get put to use often enough in tournament poker. I like it just because a lot of times your opponent thinks, well, if he had a monster, he probably would have checked, and so sometimes it sets them up to make a big mistake. Now, I don't think Van Hoof will fall for it, but there is always that chance. You know, if Van Hoof thinks that Larabe is weak with just a pair of nines or a straight draw.
I did fold it. That was going to be tough to continue for our chip leader, and Andoni Larabe, the Spanish pro living in London, takes another pot. All the players have been very active on social media, and it's actually a good way to follow where they are, what they're doing if they decide to put their personal life on full view. Martin Jacobson said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity."
He didn't first say that.
No, he didn't. He tweeted it, though, today.
Jeez, I think it was maybe Sonny from Sonny and Cher.
And Van Hoof reminding everybody today is the day, and only because he almost missed his day one at the main event. Felix Stevenson says, yeah, it's finally here. So excited to get started. And again, I appreciate your support. Let's do this. And Jacobson, of course, again, he must really believe it.
He must really believe it. It's
But
a great quote.
Van Hoof was at home on his day one of the main event reading a magazine, and he read that that was his starting day in the magazine. And he rushed to get ready and finish his yoga, and he missed level one of day one because he didn't think he was going to play that day.
Yeah, yoga relaxes you, but it also can get you very late to meetings.
Gets you in trouble.
Raise 900,000.
3 folds and Pappas with a race at 900,000 with King Jack suited.
Folds and folds.
And that will do it. Pappas will win with that raise. And we are still 9-handed. First one out earns no money. Top dog tomorrow wins $10 million. We'll be back with more from the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio. We're having a ball. Come on back. The 2014 World Series of Poker main event final table telecast presented by Gentleman Jack. The big story here, Mark Newhouse. Some people didn't think he could go back-to-back.
If he makes back-to-back main event final tables, I will dive into the LA River in the buff. I will climb the Sears Tower in flip-flops. I will zip line across the Grand Canyon with Mike Matusow on my back. If this guy makes back-to-back main event final tables, I will parachute out of a helicopter over Hoover Dam while playing bagpipes. I will cook 2 Cornish hens and slice an avocado while standing on my head. I will remarry and re-divorce my first wife. I think I'll need a court order. If this guy makes back-to-back November 9s, I will, why even bother at this point?
The odds of Mark doing this were 1 in over $500,000, 1 in 700,000 getting hit by lightning, 1 in 56,000 of seeing Antonio in shoes during commentary, and even money being name-dropped by Phil Hellmuth. And I know Mark Newhouse, Norman, is going to hold you to one of those, I think.
Well, I might do the LA River. The bad news is I can't swim. The good news is that the LA River has no water in it. So when I dive into a concrete canyon, I'll just break an arm and a leg.
We will visit you at LA General. Mark Newhouse, mostly a cash game pro, and I imagine those jobs at Staples and McDonald's were just to get him back to the table and pump up his bankroll a little bit. Is that how it happens, Antonio?
That's how it works. When you go bust, you go to McDonald's.
For 2 things, either to eat or to work, right?
Exactly.
All right, Jacobson folded. We are still 9-handed. Larabe has the button in this hand. Bruno Politano in the very familiar yellow and green of Brasilia.
What were the odds we just showed about Antonio?
It was like 56,000 plus.
For him to...
And look, you don't win the bet.
Oh. I'm just grateful that he doesn't come in here in like a silk bathrobe and alligator slippers.
Don't give him any ideas. Politano raises with 8-7 suited to 900,000. The blinds is still in 2 and 400,000 with a 50K ante. We began the night with just a little over an hour and a half left in this level. The levels are 2 hours each. Over $27.5 million still to be awarded, and that doesn't include ninth place, who goes away without any more money. A call from Newhouse with pocket jacks. Now Larabe on the button. He's been running pretty good so far, and he's sitting there like he's got something.
Pretty tricky to just call with jacks, especially against someone who's on the shorter side like Politano. But I like it. Your hand is totally hidden. You also paved the way for the button to potentially do something.
Ace queen you see for Larabe on the button.
2.8.
Free raise at
You heard it. 2.8 million is the 3-bet. Tonking, who's now the short stack, folds.
I'm really excited to see what unfolds. You know, I don't know what Newhouse is going to do, whether he's just going to call or, you know, put in the fourth raise here. I think you can justify either or. Politano will be done with this hand.
And we did see some stats where Newhouse is very eager to put in the first raise, but not eager to call any further raise. But with jacks, different story.
Well, jacks and the button re-raised here, so you know, it's a pretty good spot. But then again, you don't want to, you know, get all your money in with jacks if your opponent is also willing to get all his money in with jacks. Now, obviously, Newhouse can't see what Larabe has. It's a lot easier for me to sit here and talk about it because I can. But if I'm in Newhouse's shoes, I'm concerned that Larabe could have a hand bigger than mine.
In go the cards from Politano. And any wager you make, any commitment to the pot is so expensive to the short stacks, and Politano was just trying to figure out what his options were, and I think he knew very early on, but just was reluctant.
How much do you have behind?
About 20, 21. And what did you start with?
I started with 27.
There's the bookkeeping done. Tray 7-8. So the pocket jack's still good for Newhouse here.
Check.
He's going to play it passively once again.
And by the way, given the stack sizes, given that Larabe had such a big stack, I think calling is the better play in the long run. Just because you don't want to open yourself up to a 5-bet and then now you don't know what to do with jack. So I love calling. You allow your opponent to continue firing after the flop. This is a great flop for Newhouse.
So you can see the cards. Your job's done normally. Okay. So now what happens? If a bet, you see a raise from Newhouse?
No, I think he's just going to check call.
All right.
I don't think there's any version of him check raising.
That. Okay.
Because if his opponent has what he's representing, which is, you know, aces or kings or possibly queens,
2.7.
he doesn't want to check raise and get it all in. If he has what he has here, ace queen or potentially ace king or you know, a stone cold bluff, you don't want to take his bluff away from him on the next card. Yeah, you do give him the chance of catching up with an ace or a queen on the turn, but hey, that's just the name of the game.
Call.
Big pot developing, almost 13 million. Ace queen against the pocket jacks of Newhouse. 5 of clubs. Early in the game still, but everyone here senses that this is a critical moment.
Two healthy stacks, both starting with more than 50 big blinds in this hand.
This is a really interesting hand because if Larabe puts in a bet here, it's going to be pretty tough for Newhouse, but I don't think he's going anywhere. If Larabe had aces or kings, which is what he's representing, you know, on that flop and that turn card, you might want to check it back and control the size of the pot. You don't want to bet with aces and get check raised here for your whole tournament at the final table of the main event. So a bet here from Larabe would actually be a little bit fishy.
Check.
There is a check. River card now. Deuce of spades. So Newhouse is best with the jacks.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's going to go check.
There's one of it, and there's the other. And Mark Newhouse will take that pot of almost 13 million from Andoni Larabe. Each player bringing a very enthusiastic contingent to the Penn and Teller Theater. Mark Newhouse now up to almost 28 million.
Yeah, Larabe had passed him on the chip list, but now Newhouse regains his third spot. Larabe to 4.
The 1996 main event champion, Huckseed, who did not have to deal with this crowd at all back in the day.
Huckseed in the Mark Newhouse corner. One of his mentors the last few years, helping Mark get back on the straight and narrow, and Newhouse went through some dark days.
Yeah, Huckseed, one of the more interesting poker characters, and a player that a lot of people feel should someday be in the Poker Hall of Fame. Politano folds.
Huck is a legend. I mean, he was playing this style of poker way back in the day before anybody else was playing it. I remember when I first started coming up in poker, I met Huck and I saw him play, and I looked up to him in a way as as well. I like Huck a lot. Huckleberry Seed.
And Huck's had his ups and downs in poker and in life, and that's one of the reasons he was able to school Mark Newhouse about the ups and downs Mark was going through.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, he's got some incredible stories.
Talking wants to get involved. With a 6 off, a raise to 800,000. Talking started the hand with 14.5 million. Down about $0.5 million from his starting stack. And Martin Jacobson, the Swede, who has a ton of tournament winnings, over 1.2 World Series of Poker winnings, live tournament career winnings of almost 5 million, not including this main event.
Yeah, this is his 5th World Series final table.
He's a very well-respected player. I mean, they go crazy for him on the European Poker Tour and over there. Over here in the U.S., he flies a little bit under the radar, which he's done during this main event, even though he's got all those final tables and all those winnings.
I think him and Jason Kuhn are lost brothers at birth. He's like the European version of Jason Kuhn. They both eat super healthy. They both look good. And they're both incredibly disciplined.
And Jason in Martin Jacobson's corner today up in the gallery.
So now this is just a pure example of picking up, some weakness or some tells on your opponent. I mean, this is very impressive from Jacobson.
And look at that. Jacobson will take it, gets talking to fold. You know, Mark Newhouse making his 2nd main event final table in a row, and you make comparisons. Mark had some friends at last year's main event final table, but this year was a little different.
I feel like this year it's softer. There's definitely a couple of tough spots at the table this year. Last year, I had 2 guys that I was friendly with, JC and Dave Benefield. This year, I don't know anybody from before this tournament. And I do think it's softer this year, and I've got a lot more chips. I really like my chances.
Good news for Mark, I guess.
Yeah, well, the reason I'd like his chances, as we saw the last couple of days of the main event before the November 9, he played like a man who had nothing to lose, and you always fear like somebody who has nothing to lose. He played that way. He was loosey-goosey. He could spew off some chips, and he may do that tonight, but he seems to play like he doesn't care, and he puts pressure on other people.
And it's tough to play against, isn't it, Antonio?
It really is. I mean, when I play in a big game with a businessman that just doesn't care at all, it's really scary because he could have anything at any time, and you just hate to get raised when you don't have it, and they tend to do that all the time.
Jacobson coming off a confidence-building raise and pot in that last hand. And as I mentioned earlier, he is one that must be feared at any time. But right now, with the number 7 chip stack, he needs to get a little healthier if he wants to really get some elbow room, and he's going to raise again. And there is a very worthy reason to raise.
So now this really plays well because the last hand he just 3-bet and won the pot uncontested. And so Sindelar obviously knows this. So he's thinking, is he capable of doing this again, possibly without a hand? You have position, you have King Jack. It's it's kind of a tough spot. You really want to see a flop here. So if I'm Sindelar and I can't see my opponent's hands, obviously, you know, I'm pretty tempted to call and take a flop, but
Now Sindelar does the right thing from our angle, certainly folding the king-jack to the pocket aces of Martin Jacobson, who came in with a plan, and so far things working out very well for him. Still nine-handed at the Penn & Teller Theater. A lot to do in Vegas, but center stage right now is which of our 9 finalists will move on with a chance to win $10 million in that bracelet. Welcome back to the Rio and the World Series of Poker main event final table. Mark Newhouse started this table in 3rd place. He is still in 3rd place after finishing 9th last year. And what he has done, we have to compare it to one of the greatest of all time, Dan Harrington. Both went back-to-back, but you got to put this one way out front.
Oh, yeah, I thought Dan Harrington might have been the greatest accomplishment in main event history. But look at the odds of him going back-to-back against his fields, 1 in 26,000. Mark's is 1 in more than 500,000. I mean, he played against more than 12,000 players. Dan played against 3,300 players.
A huge crowd enjoying the festivities, and you can't call it anything short of festivities here at Penn & Teller Theater. Our chip leader is Jort van Hof, and he has raised it up with ace-8 of hearts. Dan Sindelar, the cash game pro, lives here in Las Vegas. A lot of friends here. He's originally from Howells, Nebraska, a small farming community in central eastern Nebraska. And he just got owned by Martin Jacobson, but he wants to jump back into the pot. Sindelar committing chips with ace-jack, raises to $2.4 million. And I don't think we can harp enough on Mark Newhouse and what he's done. I mean, if anybody has entered a poker tournament, whether it's in their local card room or come to the World Series or a circuit event or anywhere around the world, you know how hard it is to get through day 1, much less day 8, day
it's
7.
Impossible.
Yeah.
How about that? Making it to the final table of the main event is impossible. And then to do it again the next year is even more impossible.
And it really should be celebrated for what it is.
Yeah, impossible squared is, again, the greatest achievement we've seen, the greatest accomplishment in main event history.
So once again, our chip leader has been re-raised, and once again he has to give it up, and things not going the Dutch pro's way, and Sindelar will take it with the bigger ace. All the players of the very fervent cheering section here in the room, some up close, some out in the arena. As I mentioned, raised on a farm. He worked very hard out there. He earned his work ethic by long, long days, Norman.
Well, he actually said he was quite lazy. They made him wake up in the morning at 6 and he had to do work, but it was a minimum wage. It was a long day in the sun, and eventually poker was his calling, and he left the farm, made his way to Omaha to play poker, and then made his way to Las Vegas.
Raised to $1 million.
Went to University of Nebraska for a while, and then he said he just found his addiction in poker. Dan Sindelar right now in 5th place with $21.5 million. It's just a little above where he started this table. Van Hof has a big ace here, and the chip leader with another raise. Politano.
Politano only enter pots with pocket pairs so far. Pocket 10s, and he won uncontested, then pocket jacks. A lot of snug play early, Lon.
Yeah, and that seems to be the pattern throughout the years.
Billy Pappas hasn't entered a pot, Antonio. I don't think Felix Stevenson has entered a pot.
No, I mean, you know, they're nine-handed. There's a lot at stake. They don't really want to get out of line. And I like this. I don't really like 3-betting here when the opener was under the gun. So you just want to take a flop and see what happens.
Well, you mentioned a couple of guys who have not been in the pot, and they go ahead and get committed. Stevenson with king-queen, Pappas with ace-jack suited against the ace-queen of Jort van Hof. 10 deuce-deuce. So Van Hof is still best.
Check.
Just a whiff for everybody.
Goes check, check now to Van Hof. And he checks as well, as they all miss that. Another 10.
I'm actually surprised to see a check from Van Hof here. I don't know if he got gun shy, but he was the pre-flop raiser. He got 2 callers in the small blind, big blind. There's a lot of money out there. I would think he would stab the flop.
The percentages you see are for the player to win the pot outright. Of course, the 2 aces right now would chop it with the 2 pair on board and the ace high. in their hand. But Billy's going to try to win it outright here with a bet of $1.85 million, getting rid of Stevenson. And Von Ulf sees that there's 2 pair out there, and his ace might be good.
Right. Well, he's always going to call here in position. You know, there's a very good chance he has the best hand. He has position on his opponent. Wow.
He gives it up.
I'm taking notes, Antonio. He's always going to call here in position.
I mean, I would. But, you know, I think he put Pappas on a medium pair, maybe 7, 6s, 5s, 9s, 8. You know, that's exactly how he would have played it. And so
he enters his first pot, and he went. Is this a time where we have to risk our entire broadcast career and try to say his whole last name?
You can say it. I'm not going to say it.
William Papa Constantino. Almost.
Okay.
Constantino. I've been trying to do that for 4 months.
Okay, we'll have you on ham radio by the end of next week.
Papa Constantino is his real name. He goes by Billy Pappas. His dad, who's a golf pro, runs a training center, golf indoor training center, is Bill Pappas out there. It just makes it easier on everyone, and we thank them gratefully for that.
By the way, Antonio, I know English is not your first language, but how do you spell always? Because you mentioned.
Are you trying to hurt me?
No, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm taking notes, and I don't know how to spell always.
Sindelar with King 7 of diamonds on our 30-minute delay, and you notice as soon as Sindelar put his chips in the middle, you could see the cards. Our new format, viewer format, enjoying it at home with the cards up as soon as the players enter the pot. So we have to find Antonio something else to do. So he's running water for us today.
I tell you what, the other way was much more challenging, but this is also fun because, you know, to know what's gonna, you know, what people have before they do what they do, it's kind of pretty exciting.
And even apparently, if you know what they have, you don't know what they're going to do, right?
Exactly. Obviously, I don't know what they're going to do.
Sindelar will take it with that raise, and so Dan gets a little healthier here. And is the mindset pretty much to be able to just chip away at it, you know, as they all work towards tomorrow night's championship event, $10 million being handed out. But are there different mentalities in an event like this where some people look for big chunks, other people look just to chip away? Is there a best way to go about it?
I mean, I think, there's different styles that work for different people. I think that these guys all have the first place in mind, and they're very conscious of the difference in prize money. And so I think their approach is all about the same right now, but it's going to shift as we lose players and the blinds keep going up.
Ace-Jack for Larabe. He's had a couple of nice pots so far, but he does remain in 5th place with $22.1 million. I would imagine for someone who's not a full-time pro like Politano, and with the crowd there, with the whole country behind him, and with the blood that boils down there with their emotions, Norman, I imagine he really wants to get involved somehow to keep that momentum.
Whatever he's going to do, I do think he needs to act a little quicker. Yeah. Bruno has called himself a pro since 2006, and so he really needs to act on his hands a little quicker, particularly pre-flop.
Action is on Newhouse now, and he gets rid of it. Larabe will take it with that early position raise under the gun. Everyone respecting the 22-year-old, and if things are going to go the way they have been the last several years, it's going to be a guy like Larabe or maybe Felix Stevenson. If they fall into the age group of the last 5 champions, I think it is.
Actually, now we've had 6 20-somethings win this thing in a row. All 6 are pros, and we're likely going to have a 7th one this year. Most of this group is in their 20s.
And this is a very young final table, the youngest we've ever had. And it's, that's the trend we've been seeing over many years.
And the trend's got to go the other way.
Right.
I mean, there's no reason to live to 100 if you can't make a final table anymore.
How far off are you, Norman Chad?
I'm more than halfway to 100, but I'm no closer to getting to 15 years. Jeez.
Talking with pocket 9s and a raise. We should put a clock on Larabe, okay? On Politano, I'm sorry. And, they have been told that they do have to put their cards in that little box you see that reads them electronically. That helps us. And so a little quicker fold from Politano that time. Pappas, with his body language, tells everyone, I didn't want to fold. Rabe with a couple of face cards.
They said I could do this.
No paint on the flop, so the pocket nines are still best.
Yeah, it's such a great flop when you have 2 nines and it comes 3 undercards, because a lot of times it comes with an overcard and then you just don't know what to do.
Easy board for Tonking to follow on.
Yeah, he just can't check here. There's no way he'd give up a free card. He's got a. There are so many bad cards that can come on the turn, so he's always going to bet here.
Will, normally a cash game player, he's been working on his mindset to get back into tournament style, and it seemed to work for him very well right there. Well, you've heard Bruno Politano's crowd out there. They're regaled in yellow. Our floor reporter, Kara Scott, has an update on what's going on with the Brazilians.
Bruno Politano said that he was going to paint Las Vegas green and yellow this November, and he has not disappointed us. He told me that about 150 friends and family made the 6,000-mile trip from Brazil all the way here to support him as the short stack coming into the final table. Now, between the cost of the flights and a week in a hotel, he estimates that they all spent about $4,000 a person, and that's before the cost of the celebratory caipirinhas. Now, if you look at it this way, that's $600,000 just for the Brazilian contingent alone here at this final table. That's almost ninth place money right there.
They are fun to be around, though. They make it a party wherever they are. And the cost of friendship, as you see, for 150 friends to come out here, 600 grand. Now, airfare is expensive back and forth here. Hotels, they're not cheap. And this doesn't even include cab fare here, Norman.
No, which is exorbitant. If I were them, the rail should have saved money and taken Amtrak.
Politano with just under 13 million chips. He remains the short stack at this final table. Sindelar raised and then a re-raise with ace king of hearts, last year's winning hole cards by Ryan Reese. Von Hof, the chip leader, makes it 2.2 million.
And Sindelar was in the 1 hole, so we got to take a note of that, because Sindelar is, he's a pretty calculated player from what I've seen so far, especially leading up to today. I didn't expect to see this open from him in the 1 hole.
Well, we've seen him make a couple of correct folds with the king-jack when he was up against pocket aces, and right there against Von Hof's ace-king suited. Sindelar with another good fold.
So Von Hof on the board. He had a pretty good chip lead coming in, so a nice pillow for him to work with. And he now under 36 million, but not that much. But he does remain the definitive chip leader. But as the blinds go up, the gaps do shrink.
This final table, 9 single guys. So Lon and you and I have no chance for the final table.
Never.
And Antonio, I believe you're engaged, so the clock is ticking.
I'm a done man, Norman Chad. I'm toast, finished.
You're just
flag,
starting.
I'm waving the flag. It's over for me. But I have the best girl in the world, so.
Politano now. Jacobson folded under the gun, so Politano under the gun +1, as they say in the poker jargon. The Brazilians have been toying with a spot this final table, but it was Bruno, and known as Bruno Foster down in Brazil, who broke through, become the first Brazilian. He with ace-king. Billy Pappas, the foosball champ. We've seen him wear that green hat throughout the main event.
Not a lot of banter between these guys tonight, Lon.
No, they're a friendly group. We saw them, watching the shows last night, and very friendly, very talkative. They play online against each other, but
it's all business tonight.
All business, absolutely. And I think that will change as they go through the night, but they're still in early mode, and so Politano will take it with the ace-king. Cue the Brazilians. All right, so Politano remains the short stack, but he does win the pot. Everybody rushes to the rail to find out what their opponents are playing. Back with more in just a moment.